All right, let's talk some Eagles here. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're all getting set to have a fantastic weekend. My name is Chase Sr. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. Coming up on the show, just want to get to some Eagles trade rumors and a lot of buzz going into the 2025 NFL Draft as we are less than a week away from the first round getting underway next Thursday from Green Bay, Wisconsin at Lambeau Field. So coming up, want to talk about this new trade report around Dallas Goedert going into the draft. Could Philadelphia trade for Giants pass rusher Kayvon Thibodeaux, and is Walter Nolen to the Eagles at 32 overall gaining some steam? Before we talk about all of that, I do want to apologize. Eagles Now was supposed to be a part of our company-wide mock draft yesterday at Chat Sports. We were going to go live on the channel and do a mock draft for 3 rounds, along with all the other channels here at Chat Sports that we cover for the National Football League. But unfortunately, I had a family emergency I immediately had to tend to and had to catch a flight yesterday morning. So appreciate the understanding. Sorry we weren't able to go live, but we'll continue to give you great coverage in the lead up to the draft and after the draft because we give you the best Eagles content right here on YouTube every single day. So there was a report from NFL insider Jordan Schultz yesterday on Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert. I did a YouTube short on that from the airport, but again, I was tied up with a family emergency yesterday, so I wasn't able to do a long-form video. But his tweet and report read as such. Sources: Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert remains a name to watch on the trade market as the draft approaches. Interested teams believe that Philadelphia would be open to future picks if they don't receive 2025 draft capital. So there are 2 tight ends who we're monitoring here as trade candidates going into the draft. Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles and Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. Their general manager, Eric DeCosta, the other day pretty much did not commit to Andrews being a part of that Ravens team going ahead into the 2025 season. They have Isaiah Likely, who's a really talented young tight end who's going into the final year of his deal. Andrews, since signing a huge contract extension a few years ago, has been injured. The numbers have been down. And then in the playoffs against Buffalo, he almost single-handedly cost them the game. And in my opinion, he really did with a bad fumble. And then he dropped that pass from Lamar Jackson in the end zone. It was a disaster. And so teams looking for a tight end, albeit in a deep tight end class, have 2 tight ends who they could trade for, and Andrews, who's 29, Goedert, who's 30, both of these players in a similar situation where they're going into the final year of their contracts. And with Goedert specifically, we've been talking about him a lot, really since the season ended, because his name became a name to monitor as a player who could get traded, but the Eagles have not signed him to a contract extension. He's 30 years old, final year of his contract. His cap hit is very high for a player who's older, looking for a new deal. No guaranteed money left, and he's been injured a lot. That cap hit is just under $12 million, and for this upcoming season, he's set to make about $15.5 million in cash from Philadelphia. And you think about the Eagles' actions, you think about the Eagles' words this offseason. They sign Harrison Bryant. They sign Kylan Granson. The Eagles are high on 2 of those tight ends. We saw Grant Calcaterra fill in very nicely for Goedert last year when once again he missed time. And then at the NFL owners meetings a couple of weeks ago, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni talking about Goedert in a past tense, talking about Goedert as if he's not going to be on this team, pretty much thanking him for everything that he's done. And for Sirianni, he was like, yeah, this is the business of the National Football League. Jeffrey Lurie included Goedert in the same sentence as C.J. Gardner-Johnson. The Eagles traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Howie Roseman not committing to Goedert being on this team. And so it looks more and more likely that Goedert's going to get dealt. And if there's not a trade market for him, could he get released? There was that report the other day that we discussed from Jordan Renan, Giants insider, that the Giants this offseason on a couple of occasions have shown some interest in trading for Goedert. Theo Johnson is their young tight end who they drafted last year out of Penn State. He hurt his knee. They're very high on him, but he's not to the likes of Dallas Goedert. And unfortunately, the Eagles are in a spot with Goedert where he's older, looking for a new deal, and he's been injured a lot, and he's a top 5 highest paid tight end. Of course, Goedert wants a new contract, but the Eagles are wary of giving him a new deal because they probably want to get younger and cheaper, more affordable at that position. And they've identified Goedert as one of the players who's not going to be a part of their organization as a franchise pillar. Instead, they've paid a lot of their franchise pillars. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith last offseason. Landon Dickerson last offseason. They took care of Lane Johnson this offseason. Jordan Mailata recently got a new deal. Saquon Barkley got a new contract. Jalen Hurts is outplaying the current construct of his contract. He could be looking for a new contract. Cam Jurgens is looking for a new deal. That's just on offense, ladies and gentlemen. Think about Jalen Carter. He's going to get between $30 and $40 million per year. Nolan Smith, going to be looking for a new contract soon. Jordan Davis, same can be said for him. Reed Blankenship, they want to pay him. And that's part of the reason why they traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They just re-signed a player like Zach Bond, Kobe Dean, going into the final year of his deal. Down the road, you're going to have to compensate Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean potentially. And so the Eagles have made it clear. If we look at you as a foundational piece, we will take care of you. For Goedert, they haven't done that. And that's been pretty telling. As far as a tight end who I really like to replace Goedert, Mason Taylor, I think his best football is ahead of him, the LSU tight end. I think he might be on the board in the second round. Gifted pass catcher, good catch radius, great hands, rarely drops footballs. He can track the ball. He can run down the seam. He has the ability to have every route to his route tree. He needs to refine some things and continue to develop, but he fits the mold of what the Eagles look for in a tight end. Big, strong, fast, physical, going to need to be a better blocker to be along the likes of Goedert, but as a pass catcher, he's right there with him and can potentially be even better. And I love the way that he's able to catch the ball and really just snatch everything out of the air. And another player maybe later in the draft who could make some sense for Philadelphia is Thomas Fedone out of Nebraska. So those two players, two names to keep an eye on here as we look ahead to the draft. Harold Fannin has some Eagles buzz because the Eagles hired his head coach from Bowling Green, Scott Loeffler, as their quarterback's coach. And Fannin, the whole offense around Bowling Green was built around him. Had more than 100 catches last year with 10 touchdowns. As for Kayvon Thibodeaux, let's get to that coming up around the corner. But first, let's give a shout out to our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Game Time. Last minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. With all of the great features that Game Time has to offer, zone deals, flash deals, you can save up to 60% off going to sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, and a whole lot more. And it's the only app that I use in the ticketing marketplace. The more that you wait until the start of the event, the more that prices drop. And they make ticket buying faster and easier than any other ticket app. Be sure to toggle the all-in pricing tool. Therefore, you don't get hit with any surprise fees at checkout. Game Time. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, our sponsor for today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, as for Kayvon Thibodeaux, some people have reached out to me. Some people have talked about this. Well, if the Giants have shown interest in Dallas Goedert, and the Giants might trade away outside linebacker and pass rusher Kayvon Thibodeaux, could the Eagles trade Goedert for Kayvon Thibodeaux? It's certainly an interesting conversation to have. And Thibodeaux's name has been floated in trade discussions because he's going into the final year of his deal if the Giants don't exercise that fifth-year option. And if the Giants take Abdul Carter at number 3 overall, do they need Kayvon Thibodeaux? Do they need to re-sign Kayvon Thibodeaux and give him a massive contract extension when they've already traded and paid Brian Burns? Dexter Lawrence is one of the top interior defensive linemen in the National Football League, and Abdul Carter, I think, is a once-in-a-few-years type of edge rusher prospect in this draft class. He's the number 1 overall player on my board. And so Thibodeaux, because of that, has become a potential trade candidate, according to reports going into the draft. And this is heightened if the Giants go the way of taking Abdul Carter, because that leaves Thibodeaux as an odd man out with Brian Burns already on the roster. Now, there's no confirmation on a potential trade. This situation suggesting a mere possibility that Thibodeaux could get dealt. And if the Giants don't pick up his fifth-year option, I think it's pretty telling, right? That means that they don't want him or see him as a part of their future plans. And Ralph Vacchiano, Giants insider, said this: trading a 25-year-old pass rusher who had 11.5 sacks 2 years ago wouldn't make a lot of sense for a rebuilding team, unless the Giants know they have a replacement coming up. And that replacement would be Abdul Carter with the number 3 overall pick. Thibodeaux had some character concerns coming out of Oregon, but he's wound up being a pretty good player. Like, he does play with a lot of swagger, a lot of confidence. I love the tape at Oregon. He was one of my top pass rushers in the draft coming out in 2022. His first year, he had 4 sacks and 40 pressures. His second year, he had 11.5 sacks and 43 pressures. And then last year, in only 12 games, had 5.5 sacks and 38 pressures. He's physical. He's really strong. I wouldn't say he's a twitchy pass rusher with a lot of bend coming around the corner, but a consistent ability to collapse the pocket and bend the edge and get to the quarterback. And the sack production 2 years ago in 2023, pretty impressive with 11.5 sacks. And even last year, with only 12 games played, 5.5 sacks, excellent production, missing 5 games, and 38 pressures. And then the pressure numbers before that, 43 and 40. It's pretty damn good production there. And so I don't think the Eagles trade Goedert for Thibodeaux. I don't think the Giants trade Thibodeaux for Dallas Goedert. And I don't think that after the Saquon Barkley ordeal, the Giants want to do business with Philadelphia. But Thibodeaux, a name to watch for a pass rusher needy team looking ahead to the draft. As for Walter Nolen, to the Eagles picking up steam, I love the player. He does have burst, explosiveness, strength, twitch from that interior defensive line spot. He can get to the quarterback, muddy up the quarterback, blur the vision of the quarterback right up the gut from that defensive tackle spot. Good scheme fit for Philadelphia. Helps you replace Milton Williams. What I like about him is that he's really good against the run too. And I love the motor in which he plays with. Plays to the end of the whistle, sometimes through the whistle. Relentless pursuit. Reminds you a little bit of that energy-wise of Nolan Smith, a player who just, when you watch him, loves playing football and just has a passion for the game out there, given the motor and the way in which they play. And while things didn't work out for Walter Nolen at Texas A&M, he goes to Ole Miss last year, and he played well. We're talking about a player who was the number 1 overall recruit in the nation coming out of high school. Good blend of power and quickness at around 300 pounds. And the production, a little bit disappointing early in his career, but a lot of really good draft prospects who went to Texas A&M, have you noticed? Our first, second-round prospects, Walter Nolen, Shamar Stewart, Nick Scorton, and they didn't put up crazy production. So scheme usage for those players, a big question mark and a big talking point for these players entering the draft. Now, that production for Walter Nolen improved throughout his career. He was a disruptive force in 2024. I think he has really exciting traits and high upside, and I don't think he should be available at number 32. Just like Jalen Carter should not have been available to the Eagles at number 9 when they traded up for him in 2023. Why might he be available at 32? Character concerns. Texas A&M, they didn't love him, but Ole Miss loved him. And he also went to 5 different schools in high school and in college. Some people view that negatively. But look, the Eagles took a chance on Jalen Carter because they knew they had an owner, general manager, coaching staff, locker room, and leaders in place to take a chance on a player like that. And everything has worked out beautifully for the Eagles and Carter. He's become one of the top defensive players in the game. And when you have an organization with structure, stability, pillars, a culture, you can afford to take a chance on players like Jalen Carter. And I hope for that fact, Walter Nolen falls to the Eagles at 32. Because it'll be another Howie did it again. And other teams across the NFL will be wondering, how did we let Walter Nolen fall to Philadelphia? He's one of my favorite defensive players in this draft class and is close to being defensive tackle number 1, right up there with Mason Graham. So that does it for today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now enjoy the rest of your Fridays. Again, do apologize not being able to go live. Family emergency I had to tend to. Catch you next time here on Eagles Now. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a great weekend.